The house was quiet, but Emily Carter felt like something was wrong the moment she stepped inside. Not the normal kind of quiet, this one felt heavy, like the walls were holding their breath. Rain tapped against the windows of their suburban New England home. The kind of soft storm Americans barely notice. Yet tonight, it felt loud inside her chest. Emily had learned to trust that feeling. It had followed her all her life, and it was almost never wrong. Emily was 38, thoughtful and careful with her emotions. 5 years earlier, she had married Mark Carter, a dependable man with kind eyes and a past he rarely talked about. Along with him came his teenage son, Ryan. Emily had stepped into their lives slowly. Knowing she could never replace Ryan's mother, who lived in another state and stayed mostly distant. Emily didn't try to be mom. She chose something gentler: support, respect, space. For a while, that worked. Mark worked long hours as an engineer. Late nights became normal. Emily told herself it was part of building a stable life. She kept the house warm, the meals steady, and the emotional balance quiet. Ryan grew taller, quieter, more withdrawn. Emily noticed it, but assumed it was just teenage distance. That night, everything cracked. Emily set her purse down and checked the clock. 9:47 p.m. Mark had texted earlier, saying he'd be late again. She didn't argue anymore. She made tea, planning to unwind and sleep early. As she walked down the hallway, she grabbed a clean towel, intending to leave it outside the bathroom for Ryan, who had been in there for a while. Then she heard his voice. At first, she thought he was on a call with a friend. But the sound wasn't casual. It was tight, uneven, like someone trying not to cry. "I can't keep pretending," Ryan said quietly. Emily stopped walking. Her heart thumped hard. Ryan rarely spoke about feelings. He was polite, distant, always controlled. This was different. "I know it's wrong," he continued, his voice shaking. "I didn't plan for it to happen." Emily's fingers tightened around the towel. She wasn't trying to listen. She didn't want to invade his privacy. But the words pulled her in before she could stop herself. "I feel guilty every day," Ryan said, "especially toward my dad." Emily's breath caught. Dad. Her mind raced. Wrong, guilty. Who was he talking to? What kind of trouble was her stepson in? She stepped back silently, her shoes barely touching the floor. She returned to the living room and sat down slowly, as if any sudden movement might shatter something fragile. The tea in her cup steamed, forgotten. Ryan stayed in the bathroom a long time after that. Emily didn't hear anything else, but what she had already heard echoed again and again in her mind. Her heart pounded with questions she didn't want answers to. When Ryan finally went to his room, Emily pretended to be absorbed in her phone. He passed her without meeting her eyes. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Emily lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying his words: guilt, wrong. Dad. It felt like pieces of a puzzle she didn't want to solve. The next morning, she forced herself into routine. Coffee, breakfast, normal conversation. Ryan looked tired, dark circles under his eyes. He thanked her for lunch, said goodbye, and left for school. His voice was polite, but something between them had shifted. Emily felt it. Later that afternoon, she was cleaning the kitchen when Mark's phone buzzed on the counter. She normally ignored it. She trusted her husband, or at least she thought she did. The screen lit up. "Lena, did you talk to him?" Emily froze. Her first thought was simple confusion. Who was Lena? She had never heard that name before. And him. The message felt loaded, unfinished, like a secret left in the open. Her heart began to pound. She told herself not to overthink it. People had coworkers, old friends, contacts from years ago. She had no right to jump to conclusions. Still, her hand hovered near the phone. She didn't open it. She didn't read anything else. But the damage was already done. That single message burned into her thoughts like a warning sign. When Mark came home that night, Emily studied him differently. She noticed how tired he looked, how distant his smile seemed. He kissed her cheek and asked about her day. She answered normally, but inside she was watching him like a stranger. At dinner, Ryan barely spoke. He ate quietly, eyes down. Mark talked about work, unaware, pretending to be unaware of the tension tightening the air around them. Emily felt trapped between two truths she didn't fully understand yet. Over the next few days, the house felt colder. Not physically, but emotionally. Mark stayed late again. Ryan avoided shared spaces. Emily tried to hold everything together. But the weight was growing. Then came the second sign. Emily was folding laundry when she found a receipt in Mark's jacket pocket. A restaurant bill from downtown Boston. 2 dinners. 2 glasses of wine. A date, not a work meeting. Her hands trembled. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the paper. This time she couldn't explain it away so easily. Her mind returned to Ryan's voice behind the bathroom door, to the message from Lena, to the growing silence between everyone in the house. That night, Emily didn't confront Mark. She needed to understand the full truth before she broke something that might already be broken. She waited on Friday evening. She noticed Ryan sitting alone on the back steps, staring into the yard. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and gray. Something about his posture, collapsed, tired, made her heart ache. "Hey," she said gently. Stepping outside, Ryan looked up, startled. For a moment, he looked like a little boy caught doing something wrong. "Hey," he replied. They sat in silence for a few seconds. Emily didn't push. She had learned patience the hard way. Finally, Ryan spoke. "I'm sorry if I've been weird lately." Emily turned toward him. "You don't need to apologize." He hesitated, fingers twisting together. Things are complicated." Emily nodded. "They usually are." He looked at her then. Really looked at her, and his eyes filled with emotion he couldn't hide anymore. "I don't know what to do," he said quietly. Emily's heart broke open. She didn't know yet that this conversation would change the course of her marriage. She didn't know that the truth Ryan carried was tied directly to the message on Mark's phone. But she felt it coming like thunder after lightning, and as she sat beside her stepson in the fading light, Emily realized one thing with painful clarity. Whatever secret lived inside this house, it was no longer hiding, it was waiting to be told. Emily woke up that Saturday morning with a sense of tension she couldn't shake. The house was unusually quiet. Mark had left early for a work trip, just like he often did, and Ryan was still upstairs. Emily moved through the kitchen with her usual careful routine. But her mind was elsewhere, circling the events of the past week. The bathroom conversation, Ryan's voice breaking with guilt. The mysterious message from Lena, it all hung over her like a storm cloud ready to burst. Today, she knew she had to confront the truth. She heard a knock on the kitchen door. It was Ryan. His expression was serious, almost solemn. "Emily, can we talk?" he asked. She nodded and gestured for him to sit at the kitchen table. He perched on the edge of the chair, hands clenched, shifting nervously. Emily poured him a glass of water, not saying anything yet, letting him find the courage to speak. The quiet between them was heavy, almost suffocating, but necessary. Ryan finally looked up, eyes locking with hers. "I heard you the other night," he said, his voice low. Emily's heart skipped. Not everything, she thought, just enough to know he was struggling. She kept her tone calm and soft, because now wasn't the time for judgment. "It's okay," she said gently. "You don't have to explain yet. Just tell me what's on your mind." He exhaled, as if releasing a burden he had been carrying for months. "It's my dad. He's seeing someone else," Ryan blurted out. The words hit Emily with a quiet force. She had suspected something was off, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. She steadied herself against the table, swallowing hard. Lena, the message, the dinners, the late nights, everything clicked together. Ryan's shoulders slumped as he continued. "I found out by accident. I didn't mean to. I tried to pretend I didn't know, but it's been eating me alive." His voice cracked slightly, the weight of his emotions spilling out. Emily wanted to reach across the table, but she stayed still, letting him speak. Sometimes the most powerful support comes from simply listening. Emily felt a mix of anger, sadness, and empathy swirling inside her. She had never imagined betrayal would feel like this quiet, subtle, and revealed through the guilt of a teenager. But Ryan's pain was raw, real, and entirely his own. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she asked softly. "Because I didn't want to hurt you," he admitted. "You're the only person in this house who's ever made me feel safe." The word safe lingered in the room like a fragile promise. Emily's heart ached. She realized that the core of the pain wasn't just about her husband's actions. It was about the loneliness that had grown quietly in the spaces between them. Ryan's confession was a call for help, for connection, for someone to acknowledge the truth. Mark returned home later that evening, and the atmosphere in the house was different. Emily didn't greet him with anger or accusations. She calmly asked, "Who is Lena?" The pause before his answer was telling. He looked weary, guilty, and unprepared for confrontation. Slowly, he admitted everything: late-night dinners, messages, the complication of an old relationship resurfacing. There were apologies, promises, and explanations. But Emily had learned by now that words alone weren't enough. In the days that followed, Emily made a decision. She didn't leave out of spite, but out of self-respect. She moved into a small apartment across town, needing space to process and rebuild her life on her terms. Mark and Ryan maintained contact with her, as did she with Ryan. Their bond, strengthened through honesty and shared pain, remained intact. It was unconventional, but it was real. Emily began to see the situation in a new light. Life hadn't returned to the way it was before, but it had become more authentic. There were no more illusions, no more pretending that everything was perfect. The betrayal didn't destroy her. It clarified what mattered most. The quiet night when she first heard Ryan's voice behind the bathroom door became a turning point, a moment of clarity that allowed her to make conscious choices rather than react in fear or anger. She focused on rebuilding her sense of self, her independence, and her emotional stability. Emily started volunteering at a local community center, reconnected with friends she had lost touch with, and took long walks in the nearby park, letting the rhythm of her steps bring her peace. Each day she felt the weight of deception lift slightly, replaced by resilience and a quiet determination to live fully. Even if it meant doing so apart from Mark, Ryan's presence in her life remained steady. He visited her apartment often, sharing homework struggles, future plans, and sometimes just sitting together in silence. Their relationship, once complicated by secrecy and unspoken tension, became a source of mutual trust and understanding. Emily realized that family could take different forms, and that love wasn't always about proximity or tradition. It was about honesty, care, and the ability to grow through hardship. Weeks turned into months, and Emily began to notice small but meaningful changes in herself. She laughed more freely, slept more deeply, and felt more confident in her decisions. She no longer defined herself solely by her role as Mark's wife or Ryan's stepmother. Instead, she embraced her own journey, one that included learning to navigate pain, accept reality, and find strength in vulnerability. Mark attempted to rebuild the marriage, but Emily approached it with caution. She listened to his explanations, observed his actions, and measured trust carefully. She understood that forgiveness was a process, not a single act. She also realized that reconciliation wasn't her responsibility. It was a choice for both parties, one that required honesty, consistency, and genuine effort. The house they once shared didn't feel like a prison anymore. Emily's apartment became her sanctuary, a place where she could process emotions freely, reflect on the past, and plan for the future. Ryan's visits reminded her that connection could survive distance and complexity. She began to understand that life's twists and betrayals, though painful, could also illuminate the strength and resilience within herself. One evening, as Emily sat on her apartment balcony watching the city lights, she reflected on the chain of events that had led her here. It all began with a voice behind a bathroom door, a voice full of confusion, guilt, and fear. That moment, small and fragile, had set in motion a series of revelations that reshaped her understanding of love, trust, and family. She realized that betrayal didn't always come with drama or confrontation. Sometimes it arrived quietly through messages, whispers, and subtle changes in behavior. and sometimes the clarity it brought was a gift. Allowing those who were brave enough to see the truth to rebuild stronger, wiser, and more authentically. Emily's story became one of transformation. She learned to navigate adult relationships with careful awareness, to value honesty above appearances, and to recognize the importance of emotional safety for herself and those she cared about. The love she shared with Ryan, though unconventional, became a cornerstone of her life. A reminder that true connection transcends circumstance. Life continued, full of ordinary routines punctuated by moments of unexpected clarity. Emily embraced the slow rhythm of healing, understanding that the scars left by betrayal were also maps of personal growth. She faced each day with a balance of caution and courage, aware that the past could inform the future but would not dictate it. Eventually, Emily reached a place of calm. She maintained respectful, careful contact with Mark, nurtured a meaningful relationship with Ryan, and carved out space for herself, life defined by choice, awareness, and emotional integrity. The pain of betrayal had not destroyed her. It had refined her. She had learned to listen, to trust cautiously, and to value the clarity that comes from facing uncomfortable truths. Looking back, Emily understood the significance of that first night, the night she heard Ryan's voice behind the bathroom door. It was the moment everything shifted, the moment she saw her family as it truly was. In that clarity, she found strength, direction, and the courage to create a life that honored honesty, love, and resilience. Emily's journey was not without sorrow, but it was rich with understanding. She discovered that sometimes endings were beginnings in disguise. By stepping away, observing truth, and embracing emotional growth, she created a life that was not perfect but was undeniably hers. And in that life she found peace, connection, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing she had survived, learned, and grown stronger than she had ever imagined. The story of Emily Carter reminds us that family, love, and trust are complex. Betrayal doesn't always shout, it whispers. It lingers. It challenges us to confront reality. And when we do, when we face the truth with courage, we discover that we are capable of rebuilding, of loving differently, and of finding clarity amidst chaos. It is in that clarity, in that understanding, that we find our true strength. Emily never forgot the nights of uncertainty, the whispered confessions, and the moments that forced her to see the truth. But she also never forgot the resilience she discovered within herself. She learned that life is rarely simple, but it is always worth living fully, honestly, and with an open heart. And in that knowledge, she finally felt free.